the headline had screamed, 12 years. She would spend the prime of her life behind bars, and yet my victory felt hollow, stained with the venom of my parents' disapproval. Mom and Dad hadn't spoken to me since the trial. Their last words, delivered through their lawyer, a man I used to call Uncle David, were a masterclass in gaslighting. "This is a tragedy for our family," he'd intoned, his expression carved from stone. "Ava is a troubled girl who made a terrible mistake. To scapegoat her for your own unhappiness is monstrous. Your name, you are tearing this family apart." Unhappiness, I thought, the memory of Ava's smug face as I choked on the floor of the reception hall flashing behind my eyes. "You call this unhappiness?" I had hired a different lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Evelyn Ross, recommended by Kyle's family. Evelyn had been my rock, a fortress of logic and evidence in a sea of emotional manipulation. She presented the toxicology reports, the security footage from the venue that showed Ava slipping the lemon into the whiskey, and the damning testimony of the bartender who'd seen the whole thing. It should have been an open and shut case. But the courtroom hadn't been a temple of justice. It had been a theater of familial dysfunction. Ava, dressed in a crisp orange jumpsuit, had sat with her head held high, a picture of manufactured serenity. Her lawyer, my ex-boyfriend from 2 years ago, Daniel, had played his part perfectly. He was young, hungry, and utterly ruthless. He painted me as a bitter, jealous woman, resentful of the miracle child who had survived against all odds. He insinuated that I fabricated the entire poisoning story, a twisted fantasy born from a lifetime of being overshadowed. He pointed to my history of distancing myself from the family, claiming it proved my instability. "You testified that your sister has always craved attention," Daniel had sneered during his cross-examination. "Isn't it possible, Ms. your last name, that you simply fabricated this elaborate, dramatic tale to finally be the center of attention yourself?" The gallery had murmured. My parents sat in the front row, their faces a mask of sorrowful disappointment. They didn't look at me. They looked at Ava, their gazes filled with a pity that felt like a knife to the heart. Evelyn had stood, a pillar of calm fury. "Objection, Your Honor, argumentative and speculative," she'd barked. But the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. And in a system already tilted by privilege and a family name that carried weight in our small, affluent community, doubt was poison. The jury had deliberated for less than 4 hours. Now, alone in my hospital room, I replayed every moment of that trial, searching for a crack in the narrative, a piece of evidence I might have missed. What if Daniel was right? What if I had imagined the entire thing? The fear wasn't just paranoia, it was a creeping dread that settled in my gut like a cold stone. My throat still hurt, a phantom ache that throbbed whenever I swallowed. The doctors said the damage was permanent, that I would have a faint scar and a permanently raspy voice. A constant, audible reminder of my betrayal. Then 3 days after I was discharged, the first letter arrived. It wasn't addressed to me, it was addressed to Kyle. He opened it in the living room while I was in the kitchen making tea. I heard the rustle of paper, then his footsteps approaching. He didn't speak for a long moment. He just stood in the doorway, holding the envelope like it was a live grenade. "What is it?" I asked, my voice hoarse and unfamiliar to my own ears. He handed me the letter without a word. It was thick, expensive stationery, cream-colored with a subtle watermark. No return address, just my name, written in a familiar, looping script that sent a shiver down my spine. "Ava." I broke the wax seal, my hands trembling. Inside were several pages, covered in her tight, precise handwriting. The salutation was chillingly polite, "Dear sister." The letter wasn't a confession, it wasn't an apology, it was a taunt, a meticulously crafted, psychologically devastating game of cat and mouse. 12 years is a long time to be away from the stage, don't you think?" she wrote. "I'll miss the applause, the adoration, the way everyone looks at me with a mixture of awe and pity. But don't worry, I've planned a little encore for us. You see, darling, the show doesn't